The wagon wheel broke clean through just as Olivia Lancaster crossed into Montana territory, and she knew with absolute certainty that her carefully constructed plan was falling apart as surely as the splintered wood beneath her feet. She stood in the middle of the dusty trail, staring at the useless vehicle that held everything she owned in this world, while the September sun beat down mercilessly on her black mourning dress. Her father had been dead 3 weeks, her money would last perhaps 2 more, and now she was stranded somewhere between despair and a town she could not even see on the horizon. The advertisement she carried in her pocket promised employment as a schoolteacher in Lewiston, Montana, but the interview was scheduled for tomorrow morning, and she was at least a day's travel away with no means of getting there. The sound of hoofbeats made her turn, one hand rising to shield her eyes from the glare. A single rider approached, leading a pack horse behind him. As he drew closer, Olivia could make out a tall man in worn denim and a dust-covered hat, sitting his horse with the easy grace of someone who had spent more time in the saddle than out of it. He slowed as he neared her, his eyes taking in the broken wagon, the tired horse still in its traces, and her own disheveled appearance. "Looks like you have got trouble, miss," he said, his voice low and measured. He dismounted in one fluid motion, removing his hat to reveal dark hair and a face weathered by sun and wind. He appeared to be somewhere in his late 20s, with gray eyes that held both intelligence and something that looked like bone-deep weariness. "The wheel broke," Olivia said, hating how helpless she sounded. "I was heading to Lewiston. I have an interview tomorrow for a teaching position." The man walked around her wagon, examining the damage with a practiced eye. "This is not something you can fix on the trail. You need a wheelwright, and the nearest one is in Lewiston itself." He looked up at her, studying her face for a moment. "I am Samuel Nash. I have a ranch about 5 miles north of here. I can take you into town, but it will have to be tomorrow. It is too late to make the trip today, and these trails are not safe after dark." Olivia felt her heart sink. "I cannot miss this interview. It is the only position I have found, and I need the work desperately." Samuel was quiet for a moment, his hat turning slowly in his hands. "I am heading into Lewiston myself tomorrow at first light. I can get you there in time if we leave early enough. As for tonight, my ranch has a housekeeper who can provide you with a proper room. Your wagon and horse will be safe here until we can send someone to retrieve them." Every instinct Olivia possessed told her to be wary of accepting help from a strange man in the middle of nowhere, but practicality won out over caution. She had no other options, and something in Samuel Nash's direct gaze suggested he was a man of his word. "I would be very grateful, Mr. Nash," she said quietly. He nodded and began unhitching her horse from the wagon. "We will load what you need for tonight onto my pack horse. The rest will keep until we can come back for it." As they worked together to transfer her carpet bag and a small trunk, Samuel asked, "You have come far?" "From Philadelphia," Olivia replied, struggling with a strap. Samuel reached over and adjusted it with quick efficiency. "My father passed away last month. He was a teacher as well. When he died, I discovered that he had been living beyond his means for years. There were debts I could not begin to pay. A friend told me that the Western Territories were desperate for educated teachers, so I sold everything I could and bought a train ticket west." She was not sure why she was telling this stranger her life story, but something about the quiet way he listened made the words spill out. Perhaps it was simply that she had not spoken to another person in days, or perhaps it was the gentle way he handled her belongings, as if he understood that these few possessions represented everything she had left. "Teaching is important work," Samuel said after a moment. Lewiston has been without a proper school for over a year. The last teacher left to get married, and they have been struggling to find someone qualified since then. He secured the last of her things and turned to help her mount his horse. You will ride Dancer here. She has a smooth gait and a gentle temperament. Olivia had ridden before, though not often, and she settled into the saddle with reasonable grace. Samuel mounted his own horse, a large bay gelding that stood at least 16 hands high, and they started north across the rolling grassland. The landscape was unlike anything Olivia had ever seen. The plains stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by distant mountains that rose like jagged teeth against the pale sky. The grass moved in waves beneath the wind, and the air smelled of sage and dust, and something wild she could not name. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, this vast emptiness that made her feel both insignificant and strangely free. Is it very different from Philadelphia? Samuel asked, noticing the way she was looking around. Everything is different, Olivia admitted. The space, the silence, even the quality of the light. In the city, you are never truly alone. There are always people, always noise, always buildings pressing close on every side. Here, I feel like I could shout and no one would hear me for miles. You could, Samuel agreed, though I would not recommend it. Sound carries strangely out here, and you never know who or what might be listening. They rode in companionable silence for a while. Olivia found herself studying her rescuer from the corner of her eye. He sat his horse with unconscious ease, his attention constantly moving across the landscape, as if reading a story written in the grass and sky. There was something self-contained about him, a quietness that seemed born of solitude rather than shyness. Have you lived in Montana long, Mr. Nash? She asked eventually. All my life, Samuel replied. My father came here in '58 before Montana was even a territory. He built the ranch from nothing, rang cattle when most people said it could not be done in this climate. I was born in '61, grew up learning every inch of this land. His voice carried a note of pride mixed with something that might have been sadness. He died 2 years ago. Left me the ranch and everything that comes with it. I am sorry for your loss, Olivia said softly. Samuel nodded his acknowledgement. It is the way of things. He taught me well, made sure I knew how to run the operation before he passed. But there is a difference between knowing how to do something and actually managing it all on your own. As they crested a small rise, Olivia caught her first glimpse of the Nash ranch. It was larger than she had expected, with a sturdy 2-story house built of timber and stone, a massive barn, several outbuildings, and extensive corrals. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and she could see several men working near the barn. You have a substantial operation, she observed. 2,000 acres, 500 head of cattle, a dozen horses, and 5 men who work for me, Samuel said. There was no boasting in his tone, just a recitation of facts. It is a lot for one man to oversee, especially during calving season and roundup. My father had my mother to help manage the household side of things, keep the books, handle the supplies and planning. I have Martha, my housekeeper, but she is getting on in years and the work is becoming too much for her. They rode into the yard, and Samuel dismounted, calling out for one of his ranch hands to take care of the horses. A young man with sun-bleached hair hurried over, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of Olivia. Tommy, this is Miss Lancaster. She will be staying in the guest room tonight. Please see that her things are taken up, and ask Martha to prepare supper for 3. Yes, sir, Mr. Nash, Tommy said, touching his hat brim to Olivia before leading the horses away. Samuel offered his hand to help Olivia down from the saddle. His grip was strong and calloused, the hand of a man who worked with his body as much as his mind. "Come inside. Martha will want to meet you, and you can wash up before supper." The interior of the house was clean and well-maintained, but noticeably lacking in feminine touches. The furniture was heavy and practical, the floors were swept but unpolished, and the windows, though clean, held no curtains. It felt like a place where people lived but did not quite make a home. An older woman emerged from what Olivia assumed was the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She had gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and sharp blue eyes that assessed Olivia in a single glance. "Martha, this is Miss Olivia Lancaster. She was stranded on the trail with a broken wagon. I have offered her a room for the night, and I will be taking her into Lewiston tomorrow for a teaching interview." Martha's expression softened slightly. "A teacher, is it? Lord knows this territory needs more educated folk. Come along, miss. I will show you to your room. You will want to wash off the trail dust before supper." The guest room was simple but comfortable, with a real bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the pastures. Martha brought up hot water and clean towels, then left Olivia to refresh herself. As she washed her face and hands, Olivia caught sight of herself in the small mirror above the washstand. She looked tired and dusty, her brown hair escaping from its pins, her gray eyes shadowed with exhaustion. At 22 years old, she felt decades older, worn down by grief and uncertainty. She changed into a clean dress, still black for mourning but at least not covered in trail dust. When she came downstairs, she found Samuel in what appeared to be a study, poring over ledgers by lamplight. He had changed his shirt and washed up, and without his hat, she could see his face more clearly. He was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and those remarkable gray eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Martha says supper will be ready shortly," Samuel said, looking up from his books. "Can I offer you some water or tea while we wait?" "Water would be lovely, thank you." He poured her a glass from a pitcher and gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Forgive me for working while you are a guest, but I am trying to sort out the books before I go into town tomorrow. I need to place orders with the mercantile, and I am afraid my accounting is not what it should be." Olivia moved closer, glancing at the ledgers. Even from her limited view, she could see that the columns were disorganized and some of the sums appeared incorrect. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the books. Samuel looked surprised but pushed them toward her. "Be my guest. Numbers have never been my strength." Olivia studied the entries for a few minutes, her trained eye quickly identifying several errors and inconsistencies. "You have transposed these figures here," she said, pointing. "And this column is not adding up correctly. Also, you are tracking your cattle inventory and your feed costs in separate books when they should be cross-referenced to give you an accurate cost per head." Samuel leaned forward, watching as she quickly corrected the errors and reorganized several entries. "How do you know about ranch accounting?" "I do not specifically," Olivia admitted, "but I know mathematics and bookkeeping. My father taught me from a young age." He believed that a woman should be able to manage finances as well as any man. The principles are the same whether you are tracking cattle or classroom supplies. For the first time since they had met, Samuel smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "You just solved a problem that has been plaguing me for months. I can run this ranch with my eyes closed, but sitting here with these ledgers makes me feel like I am trying to read Greek." Martha called them to supper then, and they moved to the dining room. The meal was simple but excellently prepared. Roast beef with potatoes and vegetables, fresh bread, and coffee strong enough to strip paint. As they ate, Samuel told Olivia about the ranch, about the challenges of managing cattle in Montana's harsh climate, about his hopes to expand his herd and improve his breeding stock. "The market for beef is growing," he explained. "The railroad has made it possible to ship cattle east, and there is good money to be made if you can produce quality stock. But it requires capital for improvements, careful record keeping, and planning ahead for lean years." "It sounds like you need more than just ranch hands," Olivia observed. "You need someone who can manage the business side while you manage the practical operations." Samuel was quiet for a moment, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. "That is exactly what I need," he said slowly. "My father always said that ranching was two jobs, the physical work and the business work, and you needed to be good at both to succeed. He was. I am only good at one." After supper, Martha brought out apple pie and more coffee. As they ate, Samuel asked Olivia about her teaching experience and her qualifications. She told him about the private academy where her father had taught, about the students she had tutored, about her belief that education was the key to opportunity and advancement. "If you get this position, what will you teach?" Samuel asked. "Whatever they need," Olivia replied. "Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, geography. I am qualified to teach students from primer level through 8th grade. I also know Latin and French, though I suspect there will be less call for those subjects here." "You might be surprised," Samuel said. "There are families in Lewiston who have come from all over. The Dubois family came from Quebec, the Schmidt family from Germany. Having someone who can teach their children in multiple languages would be valuable." They talked until late in the evening, and Olivia found herself relaxing in Samuel's company. He was intelligent and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that emerged occasionally. He listened carefully when she spoke, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her answers. It had been a long time since anyone had listened to her like that, as if her thoughts and opinions mattered. Finally, Martha appeared to announce that she was retiring for the night and suggested that Olivia might want to rest as well, given the early start they would have in the morning. Olivia took the hint and excused herself, thanking Samuel again for his help. "Think nothing of it," he said. Anyone would have done the same. But as Olivia lay in the comfortable bed in the guest room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch settling for the night, she suspected that not everyone would have shown her such kindness. Samuel Nash was a good man, the sort of steady, dependable person her father would have approved of. She found herself hoping that she would see him again after tomorrow, though she could not imagine what circumstances would bring a teacher and a rancher together, once she was settled in Lewiston. True to his word, Samuel woke her before dawn. Martha had prepared a substantial breakfast and they ate quickly before setting out. The ride to Lewiston took several hours, but Samuel kept his horse at a steady pace that ate up the miles. They talked as they rode, and Olivia learned more about the territory, about the challenges and opportunities that life in Montana presented. Lewiston itself was larger than Olivia had expected. A bustling town of perhaps 3,000 people with a main street lined with businesses, several churches, a hotel, and even a small newspaper office. Samuel directed her to the schoolhouse, a white-painted building on the edge of town, and helped her dismount. "Your interview is with Reverend Harper and Mrs. Amelia Stone," Samuel told her. "The Reverend heads the school board and Mrs. Stone is the mayor's wife. They are both fair people. Just be yourself and show them what you showed me last night with those ledgers." "Thank you, Mr. Nash," Olivia said, suddenly nervous, "for everything. I do not know how I can repay your kindness." "No repayment necessary," Samuel assured her. "Good luck, Miss Lancaster. I have some business to conduct in town, but I will check back in a few hours to see how you fared." The interview was grueling. Reverend Harper was a stern man in his 50s who tested her knowledge of scripture and mathematics with equal fervor. Mrs. Stone was gentler but no less thorough, asking about her teaching philosophy and her experience with students of varying ages. They had her read aloud, work mathematics problems on a slate board, and discuss her approach to discipline and classroom management. 2 hours later, Olivia emerged exhausted but cautiously hopeful. They had told her they would discuss her application and provide an answer by the end of the day. She found Samuel waiting outside the general store, loading supplies into a wagon he had apparently rented for the trip back. "How did it go?" he asked. "I honestly cannot tell," Olivia admitted. "They asked every question imaginable, but they gave no indication of their thoughts. They said I would have an answer by this evening." Samuel nodded. "Then we have time for you to see the town properly and get some dinner. There is a decent restaurant on Main Street, and Martha gave me strict instructions not to bring you back without feeding you properly." They spent the afternoon in Lewiston, and Samuel proved to be an excellent guide. He introduced Olivia to various townspeople, showed her the lending library, the mercantile, and the boarding house where she would likely stay if she got the position. Everyone seemed to know Samuel and treated him with respect and genuine affection. She noticed several young women watching him with clear interest, but he seemed oblivious to their attention. Over dinner at the restaurant, Olivia asked him about it. "You must have many admirers in town. Have you never thought of marrying?" Samuel looked uncomfortable. "I have been too busy with the ranch. And honestly, most of the unmarried women around here are looking for a very different life than what I can offer. They want social gatherings and refinement, trips to the city and new dresses. Ranch life is hard, especially in winter. It takes a special kind of person to thrive out here. Someone who values substance over style," Olivia suggested. "Exactly." Samuel met her eyes across the table. "Someone who understands that building something lasting requires work and patience and the willingness to get your hands dirty." Before Olivia could respond, a boy came running into the restaurant with a message. The school board had reached a decision and requested her presence at the schoolhouse immediately. Her heart pounding, Olivia followed Samuel back to the white building where her future would be determined. Reverend Harper and Mrs. Stone were both smiling when she entered, which she took as a good sign. "Miss Lancaster," the Reverend said, "we are pleased to offer you the position of schoolteacher for Lewiston. Your qualifications are excellent, and we believe you will be a great asset to our community." Relief flooded through Olivia so intensely that she had to steady herself against a desk. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I promise you will not regret this decision." "The position pays $40 per month plus room and board," Mrs. Stone explained. "School begins the first week of October, which gives you 2 weeks to prepare. We have arranged lodging for you at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house. It is respectable and comfortable, and several other single women in town reside there." They discussed additional details: the curriculum, the supplies available, the number of students expected. Olivia listened carefully, her mind already racing ahead to lesson plans and classroom organization. When the meeting finally concluded, she emerged into the late afternoon sunlight feeling as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She had a position, a salary, a purpose. She would be able to support herself and begin building a new life. Samuel was waiting with the wagon, and the expression on her face must have told him everything. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "I knew they would hire you." "Did you?" Olivia laughed. "I was far from certain." "You have something most people do not," Samuel said seriously. "You are genuinely passionate about what you do. That came through in everything you said about teaching. People recognize authenticity when they see it." They collected her belongings from the broken wagon, which Samuel had arranged to have brought into town and repaired. The wheelwright promised it would be ready in 3 days. Samuel insisted on paying for the repair, and when Olivia protested, he simply said, "Consider it an investment in education." As they drove back to the ranch in the rented wagon, Olivia found herself both excited and melancholy. She was grateful beyond words for Samuel's help, but she realized that after tonight she might not see him again. He lived north of town. She would be living in Lewiston itself, and their paths would have no reason to cross. "You have been very kind to me, Mr. Nash," she said as they approached the ranch. "I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you have done." "It has been my pleasure, Miss Lancaster," Samuel replied. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he added, "I know you will be busy preparing for the school term, but I do come into town most Saturdays for supplies and business. Perhaps, if you are free, we might have dinner again. I have enjoyed your company these past 2 days." Olivia felt a flutter of something warm in her chest. "I would like that very much." The next morning, Samuel drove her into Lewiston with all her belongings and helped her settle into the boarding house. Mrs. Patterson was a kindly widow who ran a neat, respectable establishment. Olivia's room was small but clean, with a view of the street and enough space for her trunk and books. As Samuel prepared to leave, he stood awkwardly in the boarding house parlor, his hat in his hands. "Saturday, then. I usually arrive in town around noon." "Saturday," Olivia confirmed. "I will look forward to it." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Olivia spent her days at the schoolhouse, cleaning, organizing, and planning lessons. The building had been neglected during the months without a teacher, and she threw herself into making it welcoming and functional. She met families from the town and surrounding farms, learning the names and ages of her future students. She studied the limited textbooks available and made lists of supplies she would need. But through it all, she found herself thinking about Samuel Nash. He came to town every Saturday as promised, and they shared dinner at the restaurant. They talked about everything and nothing, discovering shared opinions on some topics and friendly disagreements on others. He told her about the ranch, about his dreams of building something lasting, about the satisfaction he found in working the land. She told him about her father, about her love of learning, about her hopes for her students. The attraction between them grew slowly, like a seed taking root. It was there in the way Samuel's eyes followed her when she moved. In the way, Olivia found herself dressing more carefully on Saturdays, in the comfortable silences that stretched between them. Neither rushed it, both seeming to understand that what they were building was too important to hurry. When school finally began, Olivia had 23 students ranging from 6-year-old Emma Schmidt, who spoke more German than English, to 16-year-old Daniel Turner, who towered over Olivia but could barely read. The first week was challenging as she established routines and assessed each student's abilities. But she loved it, loved the moment when a concept finally clicked for a struggling student, loved the eager questions from the bright ones, loved the feeling that she was making a difference in these young lives. On the 3rd Saturday in October, Samuel arrived in town with a proposal that surprised her. "Winter is coming," he said over dinner. "The ranch work slows down considerably once the snow sets in. I will have more time for the business side of things, all those ledgers and accounts I have been neglecting. I was wondering if you might be willing to help me organize a proper bookkeeping system. I would pay you, of course, for your time and expertise." Olivia considered the offer. Her teaching salary was adequate, but it left little room for extras. More than that, though, she found herself drawn to the idea of spending more time with Samuel, of seeing the ranch in winter, of being useful to him in a meaningful way. "I would be happy to help," she said. "My Saturdays are free, and I could spare a few hours on Sunday afternoons as well." "I do not want to take you away from your students," Samuel said quickly. "You would not be. I prepare my lessons during the week. This would actually be a welcome change of pace." They arranged that Samuel would pick her up on Saturday afternoons, after she finished her shopping and errands in town. She would spend the evening working on his accounts, have dinner and stay the night in the guest room, and he would drive her back to town on Sunday afternoon. The arrangement began the following weekend, and Olivia threw herself into organizing Samuel's business records with the same enthusiasm she brought to teaching. His books were a disaster, months of incomplete entries and misplaced receipts. But as she sorted through the chaos, she began to see the bones of a successful operation. The ranch was profitable, more so than Samuel seemed to realize, but without proper accounting, he had no way to track his actual margins or plan for expansion. "You are doing better than you think," she told him one evening, showing him the corrected ledgers. "Your cattle sales brought in substantial revenue last year, and your costs are well controlled. But you are losing money on feed because you are not tracking which pastures produce the best grazing. If you rotate your herds more strategically, you could reduce your hay purchases by at least 20%. Samuel stared at the figures she had laid out. "How did you figure that out?" "Mathematics and logic," Olivia said simply. "You have all the information. It just was not organized in a way that made the patterns visible." As October turned to November, their Saturday evenings became the highlight of Olivia's week. She would arrive at the ranch, and they would work together on the books for several hours. Samuel proved to be a quick learner, and she taught him how to maintain the systems she was establishing. Then they would have dinner with Martha, who had grown fond of Olivia and expressed her approval in the form of increasingly elaborate meals. After dinner, they would sit in the parlor, talking by the fire. These conversations ranged widely, from serious discussions about politics and religion to lighter exchanges about books and music. Olivia discovered that Samuel had a passion for history and had taught himself to read beyond the basic level through determination and borrowed books. She began bringing him volumes from the lending library, and they would discuss them during her visits. It was during one of these evenings that Samuel first touched her hand deliberately rather than accidentally. They were sitting on the sofa, debating the merits of a particularly dense historical tome, when he reached over and gently took her hand in his. "Olivia," he said, his voice low and serious, "these past weeks with you have been the best I have known in a very long time. I find myself looking forward to Saturdays in a way I never have before. I think you know that my feelings for you have grown beyond simple friendship." Olivia's heart raced, but she met his eyes steadily. "My feelings have grown as well, Samuel. I care for you deeply." "I am a rancher," Samuel continued, as if he needed to lay out all the facts before proceeding. "This is a hard life, isolated and demanding. I cannot offer you the culture and society you knew in Philadelphia, but I can offer you a partnership, a home, and my complete devotion. I am asking if you would consider a future with me." "I left Philadelphia because it held nothing for me anymore," Olivia said softly. "I came west looking for a new life, for purpose and meaning. I have found that in teaching, yes, but I have also found something I was not looking for. I have found you, Samuel, and I cannot imagine my future without you in it." Samuel lifted her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Then we will take this slowly. Let our feelings develop naturally. I do not want to rush you into anything." But taking things slowly proved difficult when every moment together felt precious. By December, When the first serious snows began to fall, Samuel and Olivia had acknowledged to themselves and to each other that they were in love. He courted her properly, attending church services in town so they could sit together, taking her for drives in his sleigh when the weather permitted, bringing her small gifts that showed how well he knew her. Books, fine writing paper, a warm shawl in a deep blue that matched her eyes. The town noticed, of course. Mrs. Patterson watched their developing romance with approval, and the other teachers and townspeople began to speak of them as a couple. Some of the ranch wives who came into town offered Olivia advice about life on a ranch, about the challenges and rewards of marrying a cattleman. The school term proceeded well. Olivia's students thrived under her patient instruction, and she felt deep satisfaction in their progress. Young Emma Schmidt was learning English rapidly. Daniel Turner had advanced 2 reading levels, and the middle students were tackling increasingly complex arithmetic. She wrote detailed reports for the school board and began planning a Christmas program that would showcase the students' achievements. But as much as she loved teaching, Olivia found herself increasingly drawn to the ranch, to the life Samuel was building there. She began to understand the rhythm of ranch operations, the endless cycle of work that changed with the seasons. She helped Martha with household tasks during her weekend visits, learning to cook on the massive wood stove, to preserve food, to manage a large household efficiently. "You have taken to this life better than I expected," Martha told her one December afternoon as they worked together on mending. "Some women cannot adapt to the isolation and hard work, but you seem to thrive on it." "I find satisfaction in useful work," Olivia replied, threading her needle. "Teaching is rewarding, but there is something deeply fulfilling about maintaining a home, about creating order and comfort. I never had the opportunity to do this for my father. He preferred to live simply, and we had a landlady who handled all domestic matters." "Mr. Samuel needs a wife," Martha said bluntly. "This house needs a woman's touch, and the ranch needs someone who can manage the business side." "He is a good man, Miss Olivia. He will treat you well." "I know he would," Olivia said softly. "I've come to understand what kind of man Samuel Nash is. Honest, hardworking, intelligent kind. Any woman would be fortunate to be his wife." "And he would be fortunate to have you," Martha said firmly. "I have watched him these past months. He is happier than I have seen him since his father passed. You have given him something to look forward to beyond just keeping the ranch running." On the evening before Christmas, Samuel asked Olivia to marry him. They were standing on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sun set over the snow-covered pastures. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the cold air made their breath visible in soft clouds. "Olivia," Samuel said, taking both her hands in his, "I know we have only known each other for 4 months. Some would say that is not long enough to make such an important decision, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. I love your intelligence, your kindness, your passion for teaching, your willingness to work hard for what you believe in. I love the way you have brought light and warmth into my life. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner in building a life together?" Olivia felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yes, Samuel. Yes, I will marry you. I love you with all my heart." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "It was my mother's ring. My father gave it to me before he died, told me to save it for a woman who would love the ranch as much as she loved me. I believe you are that woman." Olivia held out her hand, and Samuel slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Then he drew her close and kissed her for the first time, a gentle kiss that held both promise and reverence. They were married on a cold January morning in 1884, in the small church in Lewiston with most of the town in attendance. Olivia wore a simple dress of cream-colored wool and Samuel wore his best suit. Reverend Harper performed the ceremony, and Mrs. Stone cried happy tears. After the service, there was a reception at the hotel, with food and music and much celebration. But the real celebration came that evening when Samuel brought his bride home to the ranch. He carried her over the threshold despite her laughing protests, and they stood together in the parlor that was now truly their home. "Welcome home, Mrs. Nash," Samuel said, his arms still around her. "Home," Olivia repeated, testing the word. It felt right in a way that nowhere else ever had. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, a gentle exploration of passion and love. Samuel was patient and caring, making sure Olivia felt cherished and safe. Afterwards, they lay together in the darkness, talking quietly about their hopes and dreams for the future. "I will need to finish the school term," Olivia said. "I made a commitment to the students and the school board, but after that, I think I am ready to focus on the ranch and our home." "Are you certain?" Samuel asked, stroking her hair. "I know how much teaching means to you." "It does mean a great deal," Olivia agreed. "But I have realized that what I love most about teaching is helping people learn and grow. I can do that here in different ways. I can teach you business management, help the ranch hands improve their reading and writing, perhaps even start a small school for the children of the ranch families eventually. And more than that, I want to build this life with you. The ranch is not just your dream anymore, Samuel. It is ours." True to her word, Olivia continued teaching through the end of the school year. It was challenging, managing both her classroom responsibilities and her duties as Samuel's wife, but she threw herself into both with characteristic determination. She rose before dawn to help with breakfast and household tasks, spent her days at the schoolhouse, and returned to the ranch each evening to work on the books and plan for the next day. Samuel supported her completely, often driving her to and from town himself, despite the extra time it required. He attended every school event, praised her accomplishments, and never complained about the divided attention. The students adored him, this quiet rancher who clearly loved their teacher, and he became a familiar figure around the schoolhouse. In March, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled them both with joy and a touch of nervousness. She was determined to finish the school term, but she also knew that motherhood would require her to step back from teaching, at least for a time. "We will manage," Samuel assured her, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "Whatever you decide, whatever you need, we will make it work." The school board was understanding when Olivia informed them that she would not be returning for the next academic year. They had already begun searching for her replacement, and Olivia worked with the new teacher, a young woman from Denver named Miss Caroline Foster, to ensure a smooth transition. On her last day of teaching, the students presented her with a beautiful quilt they had made with help from their mothers. Each square represented something they had learned during the year, from arithmetic equations to maps to literary quotes. Olivia cried openly as she accepted it, overwhelmed by the love and effort that had gone into the gift. "You have taught us so much, Mrs. Nash," young Daniel Turner said, speaking for all the students. "You believed in us when we did not believe in ourselves. We will never forget you." "And I will never forget any of you," Olivia replied, her voice thick with emotion. "You have given me one of the greatest gifts of my life, the privilege of being your teacher." She left the schoolhouse that final afternoon with no regrets. Teaching had been important, but it was time for the next chapter of her life. She was ready to devote herself fully to the ranch, to Samuel, and to the family they were creating together. The summer passed in a blur of activity. Olivia threw herself into improving the ranch operations with the same intensity she had brought to teaching. She implemented new accounting systems that allowed them to track every aspect of the business with precision. She reorganized the supply chain, finding better prices for feed and equipment. She worked with Samuel to develop a breeding program that would improve the quality of their cattle over time, but she also made the house a true home. She sewed curtains for the windows, planted a kitchen garden, and filled the rooms with small touches that made the space warm and welcoming. She worked alongside Martha, learning the older woman's recipes and techniques, preparing for the day when she would manage the household entirely on her own. Martha, for her part, was delighted to gradually hand over responsibilities to the younger woman. She had been with the Nash family for over 20 years, and while she loved Samuel like a son, she was ready to retire to her sister's home in Lewiston. "This house needs young energy," she told Olivia. "Needs children running through it and laughter in the halls. I am an old woman, ready for some peace and quiet." In late September, on a crisp autumn morning, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The labor was long and difficult, but Samuel never left her side, holding her hand through every contraction, murmuring encouragement when she felt she could not continue. When the baby finally arrived, red-faced and squalling, Samuel wept openly at the sight of his son. They named him James, after Samuel's father, with the middle name Thomas after Olivia's father. He was a beautiful baby with wisps of dark hair and gray eyes like his father. Olivia fell in love with him instantly and completely. This tiny person who was part of her and part of Samuel, the living embodiment of their love. Motherhood was harder than Olivia had anticipated. The sleepless nights, the constant demands, the overwhelming responsibility of caring for such a fragile life, all of it pushed her to her limits. But Samuel was an active, engaged father from the beginning. He walked the floor with James when the baby was fussy, changed diapers without complaint, and insisted that Olivia rest whenever possible. "We are partners in this, just as we are partners in everything else," he told her one exhausted midnight as they took turns soothing their colicky son. "I am not one of those men who believes child rearing is solely women's work. This is my son too, and I will do my share." As James grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. The systems Olivia had implemented paid dividends, allowing them to expand their herd and purchase additional land. Samuel hired 2 more ranch hands, bringing their total workforce to 7 men, and Olivia began teaching reading and writing classes for any of the workers who were interested in improving their education. The ranch became known throughout the territory for its well-managed operations and quality stock. Other ranchers sought Samuel's advice, and Olivia found herself consulting with their wives on household management and bookkeeping. She started a lending library from the ranch house, allowing neighboring families to borrow books, and organized occasional social gatherings that brought the scattered community together. In the spring of 1887, Olivia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah. Unlike her brother's difficult birth, Sarah arrived quickly and easily, as if eager to join the world. She had Olivia's brown hair and a temperament that was sunny and easy-going from the start. With 2 children and a thriving ranch, life was full and demanding. But Olivia had never been happier. She had found her place, her purpose, in this wild land so far from where she had begun. She was a wife, a mother, a business partner, and an educator, all the roles blending together in a life that felt rich and meaningful. Samuel proved to be everything she had hoped for in a husband and more. He was patient and kind, passionate and thoughtful, a man who valued her opinion and respected her intelligence. They worked together seamlessly, each bringing their strengths to their partnership. In the evenings, after the children were asleep, they would sit together and plan for the future, dreaming of the legacy they would build for James and Sarah and any other children who might come. The years passed with the changing seasons, each one bringing its own challenges and triumphs. There were hard years when drought threatened the cattle, when harsh winters took their toll, when illness or injury struck the family or the ranch hands. But there were far more good years, years of plenty and health and happiness. James grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved working alongside his father. By the age of 8, he could ride like he had been born in the saddle and knew every inch of the ranch. Sarah was gentler, more interested in books and learning like her mother. Olivia taught both children at home, providing them with an education that rivaled anything they could have received in town. In 1891, Olivia gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named Henry and Grace. The pregnancy had been difficult, and the birth had been frightening, with complications that had the doctor worried. But both babies arrived healthy, and Olivia recovered fully, though the experience convinced her that their family was now complete. With 4 children, the ranch house was always full of noise and activity. But it was a joyful chaos, the sound of a family living and loving together. Samuel had expanded the house over the years, adding more bedrooms and a larger kitchen, ensuring that everyone had enough space. Martha had passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1889, and Olivia had taken over complete management of the household. She hired a young woman named Rose to help with the heavier work, but Olivia remained intimately involved in every aspect of running the home. She preserved food for the winter, sewed clothes for the children, maintained the accounts, and still found time to read and continue her own education. The ranch continued to expand and prosper. By 1895, they had over 4,000 acres and 2,000 head of cattle. Samuel had become one of the most respected ranchers in Montana, known for his integrity and his innovative approaches to cattle management. Much of that innovation came from Olivia's analytical mind, her ability to see patterns and opportunities that others missed. They were partners in the truest sense of the word, each bringing essential skills to their shared enterprise. Samuel understood the land and the animals, the practical realities of working a ranch in Montana's demanding climate. Olivia understood business and finance, systems and organization. Together, they created something greater than either could have achieved alone. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Samuel took Olivia to the spot where he had first found her, stranded beside her broken wagon. They rode out on a beautiful June morning, leaving the children in Rose's capable care. "Do you ever regret it?" Samuel asked as they stood looking at the empty trail. "Leaving teaching, devoting yourself to the ranch and our family, you had such potential for a career, for making a difference in many lives." Olivia took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I have no regrets, Samuel. None. I loved teaching, but I love this life more. I have made a difference, just in different ways than I originally imagined. I have helped build a successful ranch that employs good men and produces quality cattle. I have created a home that is warm and welcoming. I have raised children who are intelligent and kind, and I have been blessed to spend every day with a man I love and respect beyond measure." Samuel pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You came into my life when I needed help for just one season, when I was drowning in paperwork and struggling to manage alone. But you stayed for every season, through spring and summer and autumn and winter, through good years and hard years. You have been my anchor, my partner, my love. I cannot imagine my life without you, and you will never have to," Olivia promised. I am here for all the seasons to come, for as long as we both shall live." They stood together in the Montana sunshine, two people who had found each other by chance and chosen to build a life together through commitment and love. Around them, the vast prairie stretched endlessly, and in the distance, they could see the ranch that was their shared achievement, their home, their legacy. As the years continued to pass, the Nash Ranch became a true dynasty. James, now grown, took over much of the daily ranch management, proving to have inherited his father's skills with cattle and his mother's head for business. He married a lovely young woman named Catherine, and they gave Samuel and Olivia their first grandchildren. Sarah pursued teaching, just as her mother had, but she taught from the ranch house, creating a small school for the children of the ranch families and neighboring homesteads. She had her mother's gift for making learning come alive, and students traveled from miles around to attend her classes. Henry proved to have a talent for horses, and he started a breeding program that produced some of the finest working horses in the territory. Grace, the youngest, had a gift for music and brought joy to the family with her piano playing and sweet voice. In 1905, Montana celebrated its impending statehood, and Samuel and Olivia attended the festivities in Lewiston as honored guests. They were now in their mid-40s, still vital and active, still deeply in love. The years had added silver to Samuel's dark hair and fine lines around Olivia's eyes, but they had also deepened the bond between them, creating a connection that went beyond words. At the celebration, the mayor gave a speech about the pioneers who had built Montana, the families who had persevered through hardship to create prosperity. He specifically mentioned the Nash Ranch as an example of what could be achieved through hard work, intelligence, and partnership. Samuel Nash came to this community as a young man with a struggling ranch and a dream, the mayor said. His wife Olivia arrived as a school teacher with nothing but her education and her courage. Together, they have built not just a successful business but a legacy. They have raised 4 children who are all contributing members of our community. They have employed dozens of men over the years, providing good wages and fair treatment. They have been leaders and examples, showing us all what is possible when 2 people work together with love and respect. As the crowd applauded, Samuel leaned close to Olivia and whispered, "He makes it sound much grander than it was. We simply did what needed to be done." "We did it together," Olivia whispered back. "That is what made it possible." In the quiet moments, when the children were grown and the ranch work was handled by capable younger hands, Samuel and Olivia would sit together on the porch they had expanded over the years. They would watch the sun set over the land they had worked and loved, and they would remember. They remembered that September day in 1883 when a broken wagon wheel had brought them together. They remembered the early days of their courtship, the gentle unfolding of love between 2 people who had each been alone. They remembered their wedding, the births of their children, the challenges they had overcome together. "I came west looking for a teaching position," Olivia said one evening as they rocked together in companionable silence. "I thought that was my purpose, my calling, but life had different plans." "Better plans," Samuel added, taking her hand. The simple gold band he had given her over 20 years ago still circled her finger, now accompanied by a wider band he had commissioned for their 20th anniversary. "Better plans," Olivia agreed. "I taught for 1 year in a schoolhouse, but I have been teaching ever since. Teaching our children, teaching the ranch hands, teaching by example. And I have learned so much more than I have taught. You showed me what real partnership looks like, what it means to build something lasting." Samuel raised her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "You showed me that I did not have to face life alone, that asking for help was not weakness but wisdom. You took a struggling ranch and a lonely man and transformed both into something I never dreamed possible. As the stars began to appear in the vast Montana sky, they continued to sit together. Two people who had found each other against all odds and had built a love that had lasted through all seasons. The ranch that sprawled around them was their joint achievement, every fence post and pasture a testament to their combined efforts. Inside the house, lamps were being lit as the family gathered for dinner. They could hear Sarah playing the piano, Grace's voice joining in song. James was likely telling his children stories about ranch life, while Catherine helped Rose with the final preparations for the meal. Henry would be checking on his horses one last time before dark. It was the sound of a family, the noise of life being fully lived. And it all traced back to that day in September 1883, when Samuel Nash had stopped to help a stranded woman on a dusty trail. "We should go in," Olivia said eventually. "Dinner will be ready soon." But neither of them moved immediately. They sat a moment longer, hands clasped, hearts intertwined, grateful for the life they had been given and the love they had nurtured through all the seasons of their years together. When they finally rose and walked into the warm, lamp-lit house, they were greeted with the chaos of family dinner. Grandchildren clamored for attention. Adult children discussed the day's events, and the long table was laden with food. Samuel and Olivia took their places at the head of the table, looking at the faces of their children and grandchildren, seeing the future they had created. Samuel said grace, thanking God for the food for the family and for the many blessings they had received. Then conversation erupted as plates were filled and passed, stories were told, and laughter rang through the house. Later, after everyone had eaten their fill and the kitchen was cleaned, after the grandchildren had been tucked into bed and the adult children had retired to their own rooms, Samuel and Olivia returned to their bedroom. It was the same room they had shared since their wedding night, though it had been redecorated and improved over the years. Samuel helped Olivia with the buttons on her dress, a nightly ritual that had become second nature over the decades. She unpinned her hair, now liberally streaked with silver, and braided it loosely for sleep. They prepared for bed with the easy familiarity of long marriage, each knowing the other's rhythms and preferences. As they settled under the quilts, Olivia turned to Samuel, studying his face in the soft lamplight. "Do you know what I am most grateful for?" she asked softly. "What is that?" Samuel responded, pulling her close. "That my wagon wheel broke that day, that you were the one who found me. That you asked for my help with the books, giving me a reason to keep seeing you. Every step that brought us together feels like providence." "I needed your help for one season," Samuel said, echoing the thought he had expressed years ago at their anniversary. "But you stayed for every season. You stayed through the spring of new beginnings, through the summer of growth, through the autumn of harvest, and through the winter of challenges. And I have rejoiced every single day since." They kissed then, a gentle kiss that held all the tenderness of long love, all the passion that had never quite faded, all the gratitude for a life shared. Then they settled into sleep, wrapped in each other's arms as they had been for over 20 years. The ranch slept around them, the cattle quiet in the pastures, the horses resting in the barn, the land peaceful under the stars. Inside the house, 3 generations of the Nash family slept, each one a testament to the love between Samuel and Olivia, to the choice they had made to build a life together. As the years continued to pass, that life only grew richer. More grandchildren arrived, and eventually even great-grandchildren. The ranch passed primarily to James, but each child received their inheritance and used it to build their own successes. Sarah's school grew into a proper academy that attracted students from across the territory. Henry's horse breeding program gained national recognition. Grace married a musician and brought culture to the rough frontier town. Through it all, Samuel and Olivia remained at the heart of the family, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They aged gracefully, their love deepening with each passing year. They were rarely apart, preferring each other's company above all else. In their 70s, they would still walk the land together, moving more slowly but with the same appreciation for the beauty around them. They would still sit on the porch in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sunset. They would still share their thoughts and dreams, still make each other laugh, still find comfort in simple proximity. When Samuel fell ill in the winter of 1921, at the age of 60, Olivia nursed him with the same devotion she had shown through all their years together. She sat by his bed day and night, reading to him, talking with him, simply being present. The children gathered and the house was full of family, but Samuel's eyes always sought Olivia. "Have I told you today that I love you?" he asked her one evening, his voice weak but steady. "You have," Olivia replied, brushing the silver hair back from his forehead. "But I never tire of hearing it. I love you, Olivia Nash. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. When that wagon wheel broke and brought you into my life, I did not know I was receiving the greatest gift I would ever get." The gift was mutual, Olivia assured him, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You loved me completely and let me be fully myself. How could I not rejoice in that?" Samuel recovered from that illness, and they had several more good years together. But eventually, time claimed him as it claims everyone. He died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 63, with Olivia beside him, his hand in hers. The grief nearly destroyed her. After 40 years of marriage, of constant partnership, the loss was almost unbearable. But her children rallied around her, and her faith sustained her. She knew that Samuel would want her to continue living, to find joy in the family they had created together. Olivia lived another 10 years, passing away quietly at the age of 73, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. In her final moments, those who were present swore they saw her smile and reach out, as if greeting someone they could not see. They believed, and chose to believe, that Samuel had come to bring her home. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, under 2 simple headstones that bore their names and the dates of their lives. But their true monument was the land itself, the thriving ranch that continued to operate under their descendants' management. It was the school that still bore Sarah's name, the horses that carried Henry's bloodlines, the music that Grace's children and grandchildren continued to make. Most of all, their monument was the love story they had lived, a tale that was told and retold through the generations. It became family legend, the story of how a broken wagon wheel had brought together 2 people who needed each other. How a request for help for one season had turned into a partnership that lasted a lifetime. Young people in the family, facing their own romantic uncertainties, would hear the story and take courage. If great-grandma Olivia and great-grandpa Samuel could find each other against such odds, could build such a love from such humble beginnings, then perhaps there was hope for everyone. The ranch house still stood, renovated and expanded, but still recognizably the home that Samuel and Olivia had made together. Visitors could see the study where Olivia had first helped Samuel with his books, the bedroom where their children had been born, the porch where they had spent countless evenings together. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind whispered through the grass and the sun set in shades of gold and pink, people claimed they could feel the presence of that love, still lingering in the land that Samuel and Olivia had cherished. It was a love that had started with a simple act of kindness, grown through mutual respect and partnership, and endured beyond death itself. The story of Samuel Nash and Olivia Lancaster Nash became more than just family history. It became a testament to the power of love, to the importance of partnership, to the beauty of two people choosing to walk through life together. It showed that the greatest adventures were not always dramatic or extraordinary, but could be found in the quiet daily choice to love and support another person. He had needed her help for one season, that autumn of 1883, when his books were in chaos, and he was drowning in work he did not know how to manage. She had stayed for every season, through 40 years of marriage, through the raising of children, through the building of a legacy. And he had rejoiced, every single day, in the gift of her presence in his life. And she, who had come west as a desperate woman seeking employment, who had expected nothing more than a teaching position and a modest independence, had found instead a love that transformed everything. She had found a partner who valued her mind as much as her heart, who supported her dreams while building new ones together, who showed her that home was not a place but a person. Their story lived on, passed down through generations, inspiring countless others to believe in the possibility of finding true love, real partnership, and lasting happiness. It reminded people that sometimes the greatest blessings come from unexpected difficulties, that a broken wagon wheel can lead to a fixed life, that asking for help can be the beginning of everything good. The Montana prairie stretched endlessly, as it had when Samuel and Olivia first walked it together. The seasons continued their eternal cycle, spring to summer to autumn to winter and back again. The ranch that had been their shared dream continued to thrive, worked by hands that carried their blood and their legacy. And somewhere, in whatever lies beyond this life, two souls who had found each other against all odds continued their partnership, their love transcending even death itself. Samuel and Olivia Nash, the rancher and the teacher, the cowboy and his bride, together for all eternity as they had been in life. Their love story was complete, with no threads left unraveled. It had a beginning in a dusty Montana trail, a middle filled with work and love and family, and an ending that was not truly an end but a transformation. They had lived fully, loved completely, and left behind a legacy that would endure for generations. The cowboy had indeed rejoiced every day of his life, for the woman who came to help for one season and stayed for all seasons. And the woman had rejoiced equally for the man who had given her not just a home but a purpose, not just security but passion, not just companionship but a love that defined her life. It was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth cherishing. It was a reminder that true love exists, that partnership is possible, that two people who choose each other and work together can build something beautiful and lasting. It was the story of Samuel and Olivia Nash, and it would be told for as long as the ranch stood and the family remembered. And they all lived, truly and completely, happily ever after.